Yeah, so I'm excited to chat with you again. It's been a long time. It's always good to talk judo, you know?
Yeah.
All right, hello. Today
Hello.
I am with Emidio Centracchio, and we sort of cross paths, I guess, in a way, from me reaching out of a general interest. We have interest in the same specifics of judo. So if you are not aware who Emidio is, he's the man behind the curtain of Judo Data. So he started the Judo Data. His sister is an Olympic medalist. He's former national team for the Italian team, Italian national champion. What else we got? You have a PhD in physical education and sports science. So yeah, awesome, intelligent judo personality.
Thank you. You're
Yes.
too gentle.
Thank you. So yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you just because for people that are unaware of what Judo Data is, maybe you actually could probably summarize it better than me since it's your platform.
Well, yeah. Well, Judo Data is a tool. Basically, it's a tool. It's a tool that everyone can use to study, to check the real technical statistics of all the athletes that are going to are competing in the highest level competition, like Grand Prix, Grand Slam, and World Masters. So all the highest qualification competitions, and finally this year we will also have the Continental Championships. I'm working on the Pan American in those days. By the way, people with different interests, like for example, elite athlete can work on themselves, or maybe audience can watch the technical statistic of their favorite athletes, for example.
Right. So the way that I like to sort of summarize that for a more general audience, or for people that might be younger, or people that are getting involved in judo, or people that don't understand exactly what you can be analyzing or make statistics of, is judo historically doesn't have this statistical base. And the reason for that is no one had done it before. So there was no way to sort of try to get as close as possible to an objective answer as to what makes someone good or how good someone is. All you have is the eye test. And as a sports enthusiast, the eye test lies. So we can see so many people were like, this guy or this girl, or you've seen it in your dojo, or you're like, they look so good, you know? And then you watch them perform and you go, the results don't match up. So it's very hard to understand why that's happening. So when you have other sports like basketball, you have points per game. When you have rebounds, and you have blocks, and you have different ways to look at and get closer to what makes a player valuable. Baseball. Yeah. And so baseball's my favorite sport, and they started doing analysis. Batting average, I believe, was 1876 and ERA was 1912. So they had these ways to analyze the players. And why that's especially interesting to me is, as a coach, it gets us, when you understand what makes a player good, you can understand what it would take to make them good. It's sort of my takeaway from that. How do you think about it in that way?
Yes, you know, everything works in some way, because we are talking about human being, and human being is you know, a universe. So
right.
But in the sport, of course, we need to know some indicator of the performance, as you told. So the job behind all the statistics is to collect all the data and provide some statistics that are able to give a picture of each athlete. Now, and of course, I also individuate some performance indicator that are able to give you an idea of how he performed and why he is or she is so good, or not so good as you underlined it before. One point that it is very important is that generally we have those indicators that are equal for the highest level player, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
we have someone who is not aligned with those indicators, and maybe he
Right.
performs in a completely different way. So the point that we have to focus on is that each person, each athlete is different from another. So it is not uh, regular. It is not well said that this indicator means that you are good. If you have not this indicator, you are not good.
Mm-hmm.
But everything should be watched, taking care of the athlete we are looking at. It's very important. This is why this job is called match analysis. That doesn't mean the analysis of a bound, but means the analysis of the interaction of the data. So all those statistics gives you different view of the same picture, the same situation, and then you can analyze this situation, this athlete, or a specific moment from different angles.
Right.
And so you can have your own opinion, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe,
So the way that like maybe rephrasing or understanding is,
yeah,
so what you're doing is you're tracking the data from these matches,
yeah,
how often people attack, when they get penalties, when this happens on the clock, taking all of the information that you can take. And if you've never been involved in doing that or never looked into it, it doesn't seem like a possible thing because judo is very fluid, seemingly it is. And the more you dive into it, the more you realize judo's not fluid. Judo isn't a 5-minute fluid thing. It's far less fluid than soccer. There's a lot more breaks. Judo happens in intervals. It happens with exchanges. It happens with gripping exchanges. It happens with throwing exchanges and attempts to do those things. So when you understand that it's actually many events, that it's not a event, then that is a lot of information that you can take.
exactly.
Right. And so when you have that data, and this is where it also gets interesting, when you have that data, the larger the sample size for people that haven't done anything like this, and I'm nowhere near, I mean, obviously I don't have your level of education and this isn't what I do professionally, but the more data you have, the closer you get to an objective answer. So for instance, if you're testing a new drug, you don't test it on one person and say, look, it's successful, it worked. You have to do a trial where people do it. The exact same thing. If we want to see if does your sister have a brilliant throw, we can't see her attempt it once. We'd have to see that over time to know, oh, okay, there's room for improvement on this Osoto or Taitoshi or Uchimata, or this really is her best throw. She could lean on it more. The sample size gets you closer to an objective truth. And the second thing is that gets really interesting, as we've seen with the popularity of things like Moneyball, or there's a great baseball book that I love called Big Data Baseball, is that you and I can have the same data and you and I can come to different ideas, and neither of us are necessarily wrong. But both of us can look at the same data set and say, oh, I think there's value here that maybe you don't see, and maybe you can see value that I don't see. So that's interesting to me. And that's where you have the evolution of sport. You see in basketball, the massive increase in the use of 3-point shooting from that exact same thing. They see the value in it. They understand it more. They do the math on how much a 3-pointer is worth. And all of a sudden you see an explosion and an evolution in the game. And one thing that's really exciting to me that someone like you is doing this, which is groundbreaking to do it at this level and to make it available to the public at this level, is that this could lead to evolutions that you and I can't predict, or no one could predict, that somebody might see value where we don't, and we might see judo could totally change in an exciting new way.
I think so. I think so. As I told you, each athlete is different, and of course, coach is different, and each coach has his own glasses to watch what he wants to watch.
Right.
What Judo Data do is to provide the much it can provide in terms of data. I always say I try to provide almost 100%. 100%, it's impossible. I can tell you,
right.
It's impossible.
Right, of course.
Impossible. But from many studies, not from Franks and Millers, for example, or other many scientists, they say that top coaches of combat sport are able to manage only 30% of the information of a contest. This is not because they are not good. This is because they are too good. And so they focus with their glasses on something, maybe losing something else. Right. What Judo Data wants to do is to provide all the information, the much as possible, to give the possibility to match those 30% to something else, and to analyze the situation and find the way to make a better performance, to help the athletes to perform in the highest level that they can.
Right.
We have never to forget that in the 6th century before Christ, we have Sun Tzu, that in the art of war, he tells, know yourself, know your enemy, and never will be in doubt the outcome of 100 battles. It doesn't mean you will be victorious, but it means that you are able to read the situation. Then in other phrases, he said, if you know yourself and don't know your enemy, the victory possibility is 50-50.
Right.
But if you know your enemy and you don't know yourself, for sure you will lose. Right. So we have different moments in the match analysis. We have never forget to work on ourselves and then work on our opponents. That's why the aim is to provide almost 100% of the data,
right, and
let the athlete and the coaches find their own way to perform at highest level.
Right, right. And when you provide as much of the data as possible, it allows someone else to look at that information and decide what they think is valuable for their own or their athlete's development. And without the option of that data, they can't know. There's a certain amount of blindness in the process when you don't know. And like we were saying before, you work with an athlete. So for instance, I've worked with a couple athletes since they were 12 years old and now they're 21 and 22. This is not someone you kind of know. They feel like your child, or it's much more than just a kid that you teach, right? And I'm sure you've had that relationship. I believe you have that. You've mentioned with Janusz, who is a coach for the Canadian national program, the bond that you guys have is that it becomes this very strong, and your training partner, sometimes lifelong bond. So when you desperately want something for someone, you can lie to yourself because you want it for them so bad, or you can have sunny, what do they call that? Like a sunny disposition towards what they're doing and how they're performing because you so badly want them to succeed. And while that's a great to be that cheerleader, it's very hard to be objective, impossible, really. But if you have objective information, then that can help guide that better, I think.
Yeah. It's exactly as you said. And in fact, the strength of this system is that all the information are given on a third party. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we are not involved. Me and my team, we are not involved emotionally in
Right.
the contest. And in fact, the most difficult contest I analyze are the contests of my sister,
Of course.
because many times I'm not objective, because of course I'm her brother. So
Right. Right.
sometimes, and it's very difficult to be objective.
Right.
But according to me, it is also important for me as coach to be the most objective as I can, also in the situation where I am involved emotionally.
Right.
This gives me a point of view that is able to not to justify an athlete if he is wrong.
Right.
And I think it's another important situation. But this is about me, and I don't want
Right.
to speak
No, but
only about
I mean, but it's interesting to hear that. I think, like, for instance, when you say that, the thing that's funny is my brother was also a judoka, so he was a national champion for Canada, Sean Hagen, and legitimately, when he would compete, because I'm not on the mats, there was a part of me that would get more stressed and more anxious watching him because I can't do anything. And so when I would compete and win or lose or whatever, there's an amount of control because I'm performing. But when you're not the one performing and you want it so badly for someone else, and you're not even the coach, so I'm just there. All you can do is hope. It can be a really difficult. Yeah, it's kind of horrible at times, you know.
it's very hard. It's very
Yeah.
hard. I can tell you that the hardest moment for me was the Olympic Games, because I was there. I was here at home,
Right.
and I was analyzing the competition,
Mm-hmm.
the hard job, and when Maria was fighting, I don't know. I think my brain stops to work for 2 or 3 hours from the moment she got the medal.
Right.
My brain stops to work for 3 hours, and I realized this later in the evening when I was on the laptop analyzing. I was watching nowhere.
Right. Right.
And one moment I say, oh, what? Here. I'm doing this. Okay. Oh, I'm tired. Yes, this
Right.
was terrible. By the way, I want to spend few words about the man who mentioned before,
Yep.
Janusz Pawłowski. He's now national coach, and
With Canada.
I strongly want to tell to everybody that if judo data exists, is because of Janusz. Because when I was an athlete and I was in Poland, he introduced me to the idea of collecting data with judo, with the system they use in Poland at the time. It was on the paper,
Mm-hmm.
writing like stenography, techniques and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment, I start to think it was a long time ago.
Right. Right.
Long time.
Right.
And from that moment, I start to think how I can do it with a computer.
Right.
How I can translate this to the idea. I took a lot of years, of course, because technology was not enough at the time.
Right.
And but now judo data is online, and I'm very happy and very proud of it.
Right.
But really, I want to say to everyone that the most of the idea, the statistics, it comes from this man, Janusz Pawlowski, that I really love as a father. This
Right.
is important. This is important for me to tell to everybody because he is a very huge person. Huge person.
And for those that don't know, I don't want to misspeak exactly regarding his resume. So I believe, but I'll let you clarify. So Janusz fought for Poland. He's a national coach for Canada. He works a lot, as an example, with Jessica Klimkate. Jessica just became the second ever world champion for the Canadian team and an Olympic medalist in the Tokyo Olympics. He was, I believe, a two-time Olympic medalist or two-time Olympic medalist, right? For Poland. So incredible judoka, lightweight, 60 kilos, I think.
65 kilos.
65 kilos. Yeah.
I never saw in Moscow. Who was bronze in Moscow and silver in Seoul.
And I never saw him compete in the 80s. And this is one thing that we were talking about. One thing that we love about judo is there is all of this access to video. When I was doing judo growing up, we would borrow because they were expensive. And I'm not saying that Fighting Films was overcharging, but Fighting Films would produce the world highlight package. And so you'd watch that 2 years after the Worlds happened for them to put it together as a small production company at that time, and you'd borrow it for someone to try to watch it. Or Roman Hatashta would play it in Canada at his gi booth selling gis, so then you'd see it there. And we were very limited, and now you have all of this access to information with high, not just out there, but high quality with commentating by the voice of judo, Neil Adams, things like this. It's really beautiful for judo. As a fan, I'm really, it's very exciting to me. So I haven't seen Janusz, but obviously he was a great judoka. And one thing that's interesting in terms of how things are full circle is how we came to meet virtually and talk is I was running a judo club in Toronto. I started a blog to try to get people to my website because it was a new website. It didn't matter if it wasn't necessarily my client base. I was trying to bring traction to the website so people would find me to know that judo existed in North Etobicoke. And one thing that I found was this data that was released by a French program. And so I took this data, which there was some analysis to it, I guess, in some degree. And then I really sort of dove into it and jumped into it. And I was like, what value can I see in this? Because I've never seen anything like this existing in my life. And I got really excited. So I wrote one blog in particular, what are the 5 most used throws in judo? What's their success rate? And why I thought it was interesting. So not to make it all about me, but to summarize, the 5 most used throws in judo, only one is a backwards technique. The average success rate of a technique from that data set was 10.5%, was the success rate. Uchimata was around 10.5%. Seoi nages were in this 6 to 7% range. And the one technique that stood out of the 5 most used was Ouchigari, which had a success rate of 15%. And I went, that's interesting because it's the only throw throwing backwards. And then the other throw that stood out to me was Osotogari, had a success rate of 22%. It had an ippon rate of like 7.5%. So its ippon rate was more than Eri Seoi nage's success rate, as an example. So I was like, oh, that's interesting that 2 throws in the top 10 and the only one in the top 5 have such high success rates, which are backwards techniques. So that was an interesting thing that I found, and I published that, and a lot of people read it, and it led to some interesting conversation. What I didn't know at the time was that data, a lot of that data was how do I want to say, captured by yourself. Yes. So I see judo data as a website, and as a nerd about statistics and judo, I was like, I have no idea who's doing this. I don't know. All I see is judo data. Who is this? I need to talk to this person. What are they doing? So then I reached out and I was like, I don't have any idea of where this is going to go, but I just need to talk to you. Can we have a chat? I'm so interested that you're producing this. And so that led to us having a brief call, which turned into like 2.5 hours. And we had a chat. And then once I decided to put this podcast together, my first thought was, I need to talk to you again, and people need to hear you speak. So it's an interesting thing how me knowing Janusz in the Canadian program, that you have this connection to him that starts your idea of building judo analysis. Then I find out the data that I had been using to analyze judo came from you doing the analysis yourself. So it's a really interesting, it also shows that maybe there wasn't that many judo statistic geeks, that you and I are obviously the two people that would run into each other that way. But I think it's incredibly like powerful and exciting for judo. And I guess the one step I want to take back to some degree is about you, is like, what got you into judo even at all, I guess. Like we know what got you into judo data, but what got you practicing judo yourself?
You mean right now?
No, in life. Yeah. Like why did you start doing judo? I guess.
Why did I start judo?
Yeah.
Oh,
And hang on one sec. Sorry.
yeah,
So I'm going to ask that question one more time in about 1 minute and 30 seconds, because I'm about to have the camera freeze.
Yes, of
So
course.
I'll just wait a second, then I'm going to remember.
Okay.
So it's like a perfect stopping point. So how has my pacing been for questions? How has it been so far?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Sometimes when you see me, just a bit, because I am,
processing the information.
Yeah, I'm processing because.
Right.
But
good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's like it's a good conversation.
Yeah. It's always nice to speak with friends.
Right.
I really like it. I really enjoy it to exchange ideas,
Right.
And today it's possible to do it because we have technology. You are in Canada, me, I'm in Italy, and it's a strong technology.
Yeah, it's amazing, and
of course,
one of the small byproducts of COVID.
Yeah.
A positive.
Yeah.
It was never this good before. All this.
Never. Yeah. But I really start to need physical persons. Okay, with you it's not possible because we are too far. But
right.
I really need to watch people in the eye.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Right. 100%. At some point, you and I are getting some pizza or something, or a latte or something together. 100%. Yeah. It is really funny to me though, like what I was saying about how circular that is in terms of us interacting. Like it's such a small, again, how many people were trying to even think about judo in a statistical analysis type of way, because no one did it before. So you're obviously going to, but people did to some degree, but I mean, to say it's not common is an understatement.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
so
maybe it would be a good question, because a long time ago, when we were athletes, video are not so common, and so as you told, we have to buy it from fighting fields and this. Right. Today, videos are everywhere.
Right.
So what it makes really the difference is data. That's why I'm doing this.
Right. Right.
Because today we need fast and accurate information, easy to use. Now, image. One athlete that wants to study his opponent, he has to, how is the behavior against left-handed? Nobody has this kind of information. In my website, you can filter all the left-handed or right-handed. You can find easily the information.
This episode is brought to you by Matsudo Canada. It's the #1 supplier of martial arts gear in Canada, and they produce not only beautiful uniforms, but also amazing apparel and world-class IJF certified mat services. Known for their customization and embroidery options, there is no one else you should look to for whatever needs you may have. Please use promo code A Fighting Chance at checkout to receive a discount. As I was saying, I was very interested in knowing what got you involved in judo in general. Like, why did you start judo? Was judo in your family before, or?
Yeah. This is a good question. We are 5 brothers. Me, I'm the old one, and maybe all the people involved in judo knows, of course, Maria, and maybe knows also Luigi, the youngest one. But I I live in a judo family because our father was our coach since the beginning. So he put us in this on the tatami, and of course me, I was the first one, and everyone after me has a part of their life that was involved in judo. Um, the number two, Chiara, is an aerospace engineer, and she was an Italian medalist. But then, of course, she lived. She quit judo to study, and now she lives in Argentina. And Giorgio, the third one, is not. It is. This is funny. He's the only brown belt
In the family.
Yeah, the only brown belt because
Right.
he quit judo when he was.
I'm sure you all bother him about it still.
Yeah, but he plays rugby today. He plays rugby.
Oh, great.
But he works for the Italian Federation, so he is involved in judo too.
Oh, so he works for the Judo Federation of Italy.
Yes, for the judo.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, yes.
What's that? What role does he play, if you don't mind me asking?
He's in charge of all all the technology in the venue, in the Italian venue.
Right.
Yeah, he managed all the technology, you know, the cable, the connection, and yes, he managed everything.
Right.
And then we have Maria and Luigi that are in judo, and they are the strongest of the family, of course.
Right. And so
this is in we can say that judo is my life. I was born in judo, and so this is my life. This is the life of my family.
Right. Yeah. And I can relate. It's very funny that you say that, like the number and everything is I'm the baby of 5 kids. So we both come from families of 5 children. So I had 2 older brothers. All of my siblings did some judo, but I had 2 older brothers that did a lot. And so when people ask me when I started judo or when I started learning things, I don't remember because I was brought to the dojo as an infant when my brothers were doing judo. So I saw pictures or whatever when they would have class when I was 2 years old, I would do judo on the floor and I was part of the class. So doing judo is like walking. I don't remember starting to walk. I don't remember starting judo, which is something that I've just always done. So yeah,
it's the same. It's the same for me.
Right.
I think that there is something in the smell of the dojo.
Right.
That, you know, like like a virus. When you smell this, this scent, you cannot do anything else. You have to do judo. Even if it's a small period of your life, but you have to.
Right. And to the same point, both of us doing it so much so and obsessively so maybe at times that we're both involved in it professionally far after our competitive career is over. We're both so heavily involved in it. And one thing that's nice is how passionate and excited you start. Judo can be amazing that way. Like I sometimes am deprecating about judo. People say, oh, judo is really special. And what I like to say is judo's special to us because we love it. I say that as an argument sometimes when people say, oh, this is impossible because judo's too difficult or things like that. I say it's just that we love it so much so that we say that. But and that's what makes it special is how much we love it. But I will say, I do think there is something about judo that is, you know, there's some magical elixir or something that when you get hooked, it's like it's a way of life. Like it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It is, we cannot explain. It's very hard to explain what's the feeling that gives to do this kind of sport, martial art, way of life.
Right. Yeah, and then for people that are not as involved or understanding of certain nations in terms of the popularity or the quality of judo. I don't know how popular judo is in Italy, but what I can say is Italy has a very strong resume in terms of spectacular athletes that have been produced. So maybe you could speak a little to, like, Fabio Basili was an Olympic champion in unbelievable form in 2016, and you have man, his name's getting away from me right now, but one of my favorite judoka in the world is 66 kilos from Italy. What's his name right now?
Lombardo, you mean?
Yes, Manuel Lombardo. Unbelievable. This guy, not only is he good, but his judo is so beautiful. Like, he is so beautiful to watch. He's had some great matches against one of the best judoka ever, Abe, and just a great judoka. So I guess my question in that is, like, how popular is judo in Italy? Is it super common?
Well, in Italy, most we love, of course, soccer.
Right.
But I can tell you that in Italy we have 64 million people, and in Italy we have around 1,300 dojos all over the Italy, and we have almost, I think, it's not updated. Those numbers are not updated. But when I was working on the Italian data, sometimes some year ago, we have around 10,000 people who practice judo from 10,000 people.
Okay.
Around the number are those. Right. So I don't know how much is popular, but for sure I can say that as you told, during the year, okay, for sure I can say that we have a good school, because through the years we have many athletes who perform in high level with really nice skills. Right. So something in Italy is very important.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's the delicious food feeds the athletes. Maybe.
Could be.
The pasta and the pizza that makes the best judoka.
Yeah.
Athletes strong. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess the next area that I want to talk about a little more is, for my own understanding as well, and for people that are interested, is I guess diving in a little more in how the average judoka, or someone who has desire to become a high performance judoka or a coach, how they can utilize the information that you're putting out. Like, what makes that information accessible and easy, and how can they utilize it in a way to understand it, or get value from it? Because there's value there, but I could be, especially if someone isn't as involved in that generally, it could potentially seem overwhelming at first.
Yes, well, of course, my idea is that numbers and statistics already help to have a view of the situation. But from those numbers, we have different calculation that as output gives something that is nowhere else. And okay, like for example, one of the most common question that one coach or one athlete ask is the opponent left or right?
Right.
Because it is important to set up the kumikata approach and to set up a good strategy to achieve the victory. So the equal and the victory. And for example, one way to utilize judo data is that if you are analyzing Maria Centracchio and you want to analyze per contest against left-handed, you can easily filter all the contests against a left-handed, and you can watch those contests. So this is one step. But when you go inside the contest, you will see a view that shows you, of course, the contest, and on the right side, the list of what happens during the contest.
So you can jump to moments in the match.
Yes, exactly. You can jump and you can select exactly the moment. You can also filter the moment. Now, of course, this depends from the level of subscription you have. Of course, it's a powerful tool, and so the basic level, you can see all the statistics, but a professional athlete or, I don't know, a crazy one who wants to to watch everything can go in the most specific subscription and watch most specific datas. And for example, when you are inside one contest, you can also filter what you want to see. We one step back, and we go again in the okay, you want to see all the contests of Maria Centracchio against a left-handed, you filter all the left-handed and you go inside the contest. Then on your right, you can filter, for example, all the moments when they approach to the grips. So if you want to study the approach on the grip, how they start, where you can go easily in that point and you can see it. And here you can imagine how much time you win. Instead of going on the YouTube, that is the powerful video platform of the world, but you have to remember if one athlete is left or right, and then go inside, and you have not the moments. So you have to take the timeline and you go forward and backward, or maybe 1 second too much, no, come back, and I want to see again, so I have to drag again back, but maybe you miss the moment. Today we are facing a really high level situation. Athletes are amazing. They are strong, they are technical, they face constantly some difficult rules that gives them, restriction. So they have to find a way to perform. They have to build an attack system able to perform and score equal, And so they cannot waste their time searching like that.
Right.
That's why in the beginning I say that judo data is a tool, and I can say it's a powerful tool to save time for the athlete and to let them properly work on what they want and what they need. This is the strength. I'm going to develop more the system, and I'm going to create new features that unfortunately are taking me more time than I expected, but it will be amazing in 1-2 months, I hope.
Right.
And for example, it will be in the statistics pages, in the statistics tabs. You can also go directly by the statistics to the expected situation. For example, and I say something very easy now. You want to see all the Uchimata performed by Ono that marks Ippon.
Right.
Okay. Today you have to remember the contest. Go there. Go in the exact position. in the near future, it will be possible just to click one play button, one call to action, and you will have a playlist with all the Uchimata he done that scores Ipman.
Right.
Now, if we speak about Ono, it's easy because we know that he's an Uchimata thrower. But if you want to watch my favorite technique when I score Ipman, what to do? With judo data, it will be very easy to go there and maybe study the behavior that the athletes have before the score.
Right.
Because the score is one moment, but we have to remember that to score, each score has a process. We have to remember this. Approach on the grip, setup of the grip, preparation of the techniques, proper technique, and then we can have the execution of the technique here, and then the transition to Newaza. Those are important points, but if we speak only about Tachiwaza, it's always the same. Approach to the grip, setup of the grip, preparation of the technique, attack.
Right.
And this is very important. And with one click, they can go there and watch exactly what's the behavior of the athlete in that specific situation. So this is one way to help. And then we have many other situations, because I also provide to time motion analysis. So how often athlete attack, how many points he score in how much time. So you will also have some physical information. So time of attack or time of active period, time of passive period. So from Hajime to Mate, and from Mate to Hajime. We all know from Mr. Emerson Frantini studies or resume that judo has a ratio between active phase and passive phase of 2-1, 2-3-1.
Right. So 3-1, you're saying? 2.5.
Actually, it's 3-1.
3-1. So yeah. So for every 3 minutes that you're active, you have a break of period of time to after. No, I mean during the contest. So each segment of the contest, each Hajime has a duration of about 24 seconds. Right. And then we have a break of about 7-8 seconds. So this is Right. Yeah. So for every 3 parts that you're playing judo, you get a part rest, where the mate is called for different reasons.
Right. I understood. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And those are important information for the physical preparator. Of course, you have not to forget that in how much you attack. Because in those 24 seconds, how many attacks you perform. Right. You are an attacker, or you are
a counter attacker, or are you passive?
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I told match analysis is the analysis of the interaction between the data, between the situation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of information. So I'll try to help give some things that I've used and I'm curious what you would think. So in my opinion, if you're a basketball fan, then you have a favorite basketball player, and then you watch that basketball player, you naturally mimic those movements. So if you're a young athlete or a coach that's getting into coaching, or just haven't thought about it in this way, one thing that I like to think about in terms of this, and your website will make it so much easier, is imagine you could say, I want to watch every time LeBron James gets a slam dunk and how he got it. And you could just say LeBron James only when he slam dunks, not when he does a three-point shot or whatever. You'd be able to do that. That's the equivalent of what you're able to do with this, which is pretty amazing because you can see the moments that you want to see for every time. And the other thing that I like to do with young athletes, so they have a better idea of what they want to do, is pick a favorite judoka. They don't have to be from your country, but they may be. You know, if you're Italian, it might be Manuel Lombardo, or it might be your sister. If you're a Canadian, it might be Shadi Al-Nahas or Jessica Klimkate. Pick somebody, or it could be anyone. I mean, Shohei Ono is a great judoka, or it could be, you know, the list goes on. But pick an athlete, and maybe sometimes it can be beneficial if you pick an athlete that might correlate or be closely related to you in terms of physical build or size. If you're a tall, lean player, mimicking your game after a Shadi Al-Nahas or a Shirazadashvili of Spain might make a lot of sense. If you're a big, huge, bulking man, maybe Teddy Riner makes sense. And so picking a player and being able to say, this person performs this, this is the player that I want to be like, gives you a pathway. There's so many ways you can do judo. If you're from Mongolia or Georgia, there's so many styles. And sometimes too many options can be too much because it's not a path that you can go right or left. It's a path that's 360 that can turn in a million directions. The options are endless. So if you pick a player that you start to develop or take aspects of it, that can give you a direction towards your own development. And having direction in your development is a very powerful tool, I think. So that's one thing, is you can make that process a whole lot easier, which is awesome. The second thing that I take away that is really interesting to me, and I'm super excited that you brought this up, is as a judoka, we often, to a degree, this might sound weird at first, overemphasize technique. And I know that sounds weird at first, but my point is we think that the technique is successful or unsuccessful based on your ability to perform a technique. So if my Uchimata is technically perfect, I'm going to throw. And that's not true, because the other person knows. And as we know, a success rate of Uchimata at the international, at the highest level, is only 10.5%. So it's not true, because they have beautiful Uchimatas, of course. So what you learn and what you understand more is, it doesn't matter how good my throw is if it's not accessible for me to perform it. So what I love that you were talking about is what leads to that throw. That's the important thing. And if you have a process that gets to the throw where that throw is always accessible, the throw becomes better. So if you are not Shohei Ono with thighs that could lift a house and unbelievably beautiful technique, you can still successfully perform a throw because you make it accessible. And so the process leading to the throw is so valuable. And so, in American football, if the wide receiver is never open, it doesn't matter. You're never going to get the ball to him. If your striker in Italian football is never open, it doesn't matter what his kick looks like. He can't score. So what leads to him being open to score the goal is very, very important. So in judo, what leads to the position, if your opponent is bent over with no hands on you, it's going to be much easier to throw them. Doesn't matter if your throw is terrible, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So so the thing I would say is, when people want to use this information, is what I would say to a young athlete is, pick someone that you love their judo. It could be just because their judo's great. It could be because they're from your country or because you met them. But pick someone that you love, and that's going to give you some direction on how you develop, and that gets you started on the path. And then the next thing is, don't just look at the throw. Look at what led to that throw. That could be the gripping process. That could be their movement. Look at those things and try to get an idea. And the other thing is about left-handed and right-handed. To people that have done judo their whole life, you definitely understand that it's different. But people that don't, if you're, say, for instance, a righty, so usually you compete against right-handed players, and suddenly you fight a lefty, or you rarely compete against a lefty. You may not understand. Doing judo against a lefty compared to doing judo against a righty is a different game. It's not the same. And if you treat it like it's the same, you're going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
So I know
Because
that maybe
different situation, open situation, instead of a closed situation, completely different system. But
Right.
about the efficacy of one attack, I can tell you that during the pandemic situation, when we are all closed in our houses, me and Francesco Bruyere, the coach, he today is coach of female national team. But before the Tokyo Olympic, he was in charge of all the team. We have some session of match analysis with the guys of the team, and we always do this trick. On 10 attacks, how much time you score? And they say, I think 6, 7.
And you say if you're lucky once?
Yeah,
Right.
you're lucky one.
Yeah.
You're lucky one.
Yeah.
But it is good because it's a self-efficacy feeling that is very good.
Right.
It's not bad, but facing the truth, they can improve.
Yes, for sure.
Facing the truth, they can improve. It's the same when they say, but the referee did make a wrong decision. Watch why it was wrong. Facing the truth, you can improve yourself. Otherwise, you will always slave of, I think according to me, it's like that. No. You face the truth, you watch the data, you watch the clip, because, for example, on judo data, every single data is related to a video or one specific part of the video. So everything can be seen.
Right.
And so it's easy to go there and say, maybe if I had this kind of behavior, I will not get shit against. Maybe. And you can improve.
Right.
Because at the Olympics, to get a medal, you have to be perfect.
Right.
No other ways.
Right.
No other ways.
So, right. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, as they say, the truth can hurt, I guess you could say. So it can be humbling to understand that your success rate is not as high as you want to believe. But again, knowing the actual data, knowing the actual truth can lead to a lot of things. And if you go, I think my Sewinage is this successful, and you find out it's not, then you're going to go, why isn't it? I need to find the answer. Then you can, at that level, these athletes, they can look at the international level, they can look at their own techniques and take data away. Why does it work here and not work here? And then they can hopefully find the connection to the success rate of when that technique is successful. Again, the technique is the technique. What allows it to be successful is often what's leading into it. So if they see, every time it's successful, this person has this grip, or I have this motion this way, and then they can duplicate that success. And while we do joke about the success rate of throws being 10.5%, I don't know the information at this moment, but Shohei Ono's success rate of his techniques is probably a lot more than 10.5%. Right.
Well, I can tell you that in the Astana World Championship, I was there analyzing all day. He had 40%.
That's crazy.
40%. It means we cannot speak about each 10 attacks. We have to speak about on 5 attacks, because 40% is 2 score on 5 attacks.
Right.
And 2 Bazari marks Ippon today.
Right.
Impressive. Can you figure out how much energy he saved? And again, and this is fun. I was watching the data of the Olympic Games just to have fun, watching this or those.
Right.
And I can tell you that during the Olympic Games, he made 21 attacks. 21 attacks on 5 contests. Okay,
Mhm.
11 of those attacks were in the final.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
So
Against
leading into
another
that final, he was.
he had to build much
Mhm,
more the attack
mhm.
with an amazing view. 5 times Osotogari with 2 Kinza and then Sazai.
Right, right. And it,
Everything was done properly. Osotogari and Kinza, again Osotogari,
right.
Osotogari and Kinza again, and then he changed direction. By the way, 11 on 21 were only in the final. It means that the 4 contests before the finals, he performed 10 attacks on 4
and
contests.
and made it to the finals. So obviously very successful 10 attacks.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah,
So
the one thing I was going to touch on about Shohei, though, it's interesting to me too, is I don't believe there's a right and wrong, but I do think there's something interesting. Is that is it better to have a huge plethora of techniques, or is it better to be incredibly good at a couple? And Shohei and another gentleman who passed away, that growing up, I would say the way I like to refer to Koga was he was every judoka's favorite judoka. Not only did he win in spectacular fashion. The person after him that I'd say fit that mold was Ilias Iliadis, became every judoka's favorite judoka, winning in spectacular fashion. And then you got to Shohei Ono, became every judoka's favorite judoka. That's my take, or maybe that's just me. But the thing that's interesting, I don't think this is exclusively true, and some people can be special talents, but there are definitely incredibly successful judoka like Emmanuel Lombardo that utilize a lot of techniques. Another one is another 66 kilo player. I can't think of his name right now. 66 kilo player. He has a beautiful Taitoshi. He has a number of
from
Eastern European, not Armenia. Anyways, he has a left-handed Taniotoshi. He has a Taitoshi. Anyways, there's a lot of athletes that use
I cannot tell you because I saw so many athletes. And
I know
sometimes...
that. And, yes, same thing. It's like when people ask me about the Tokyo Olympic Games sometimes, and they ask me specifics, sometimes I'm like, I was commentating for 8 hours a day for 8 days straight. So it's so much that it almost becomes a blur at that point. I didn't get to just specifically look at individual matches. It was 8 hours and performing a job. So it's sort of a lot. So that's sort of the predicament I'm in at this moment, is sort of thinking about it and thinking of questions. But there is definitely a lot of judoka that have a spectacular range of throws and become the best judoka in the world. But there's 2 judoka in my head that stand out. You have Koga, who almost exclusively used a Seiwa Nage and a Sore Surikomigoshi, and his throws were just spectacular. And when you look at a Shohei Ono, it's not quite exclusively, but if he uses a righty, he has a high right-hand collar grip, a shoulder grip with his left hand, and he throws them with Osoto. And if he fights a lefty, he throws them with Uchimata. It's not quite exclusively, but it's not that he utilizes those 2 throws so much. And it's when he fights and again, like we said, righty lefty is different. When he fights a righty, he throws them with Osoto a lot. When he fights lefties, he smashes them with Uchimata a lot. And there's other things that are used. I mean, I also saw Koga do a Tomoe Nage, but really these guys are utilizing a very small amount of techniques that they have refined, not just the throw, but getting to those throws. And it's Shohei's utilizing a specific grip against righties all the time to get to that Osoto, which is a different grip than he utilizes for Uchimata when he fights a lefty. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, yes, this connect to what we said before about the process. Okay, he has a process, and he is able to follow the process and to impose his style to the opponent.
Right.
And if we see so many situations that are similar, it means that this is the process, and it is easy to analyze this process if you only have to watch 10 seconds of, of that situation instead of going to watch this or those. By the way, it's in my opinion, this is the fashionable idea, the fashionable concept, of the tokuiwaza. You forgot to mention also Inoue Sensei.
Yeah. Also his Uchimata is, to some the best ever.
Yes, it doesn't mean he is not able to throw with other techniques, because we have to remember that in Rio de Janeiro, when everybody tells that Shohei Ono was able only to throw with Uchimata and against Dirk van Tichelt, he made two-time Yoko Tomoenage and then Morotase Yotoshi.
Right.
So he is complete. But the point is that he maybe don't need so much because he is able to throw with his tokuiwaza. So it always depends from your attack system. You can choose one, or you can choose many, because in the first way, you impose the situation.
Right.
With your process, you drive your opponent to the point where you can throw with this technique.
Right.
If you have many opportunities and you are able to throw in this, you don't care of you. Of course, the process is always the same, but you don't drive specifically in that point, but you arrive in a moment when you choose where to go. And it depends from the situation. Nothing is wrong, nothing is right.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right.
That's why, and data can tell you this.
Right. But my personal feelings is not whether many techniques or single techniques are good. What I think is having a process is important, and it can incredibly speed up development. And I love watching athletes with a clear plan of what they're doing, because so many times in judo, we just play judo and hope the results will come. And that is definitely going to stall your success. So when I look at players like a Sagi Muki or Abe Hifumi, and I watch how their process is so specific on how they're going to get to their technique, what's interesting is they can replicate it over and over, and they can adjust according to your reaction or the success or lack of success of doing it. And that's why it's interesting, because it's doing judo in a data type way. I do this, I expect this reaction or this. I adjust accordingly based on the reaction you give me. So it allows them, okay, that they know the adjustment they have to make. And when you see athletes with such strong process, which I mentioned too, because I know of theirs, but I don't always see such a defined process with all athletes. With those two, you do, and you see the success of those athletes. And again, I'm not pretending that they're the only ones that are successful or the ones that are great, but I think they've both had such long, successful careers. There's possibly a correlation, maybe not, but they're able to adjust their game and make the tweaks necessary, which has led to incredible success, fabulous judo, great to watch. And I think that's an interesting thing that might help some people is don't just play judo, but try to build a game plan, build that with your coach or build that from mimicking an athlete. Copy the template that Sagi Muki or Hifumi Abe have built. You don't need to invent a wheel. They're doing it. Do it. And you can watch those clips of those types of things. Another one is an athlete that I believe, which I wanted to get to, is I know that you work with national programs, and one athlete in particular that's of interest, especially to Canadians, that I believe you played some part with is through your connection to Janusz was Jessica Klimkate going into the last Olympics. One thing about Jessica, for people that haven't seen, she's obviously a spectacular judoka, world champion, as we mentioned, an Olympic medalist. She is such an aggressive judoka. Like, very rarely in my life have I ever seen, maybe, I don't know if ever, I've seen an athlete that is as aggressive as her. I say that without objective. I haven't done the data on that. I haven't looked at that data, honestly. But when I watch her, and maybe my eye test is lying, so you might know better, but when I watch her, I go, I don't know if I've ever seen an athlete so aggressive and so committed to hunting for the throw.
Yeah, exactly. Where I have a data. Yes. I work with Janusz and Jesse before the Olympic Games, because one need from Janusz was I want to know everything about my opponent, and we got 10. So we study every single opponent of the first 10, top 10, of course. And I need to have one more play, you know. So we have to know what the opponents do, and they have not to surprise Jessie.
Right.
She needs to have something more, and I think the job was useful, and also have good feedback, of course, from Janusz and from Jesse. Unfortunately, during the Olympic Games, she lost against Cizik, but
who's a great player.
Yeah, she's a great player, but I don't think that Cizik won the contest, while Jesse lost it.
Right. Yeah, that would be my. How I felt
we established
too.
Process, one specific process, and maybe just was too much on the attacks. Without a proper preparation, and she got the Shido, or she got the Hansot market for false attack. You know, it's like that. By the way, she was Olympic medal, so the goal was reached. But then this is one important thing too, that we can study everything, and even if you know everything, judo is a completely open skill sport. So from one moment to another, can happen everything. So even if you study your opponent, even if your opponent study you, and I hope that in one moment this will happen for everyone, then the ball is in the hand of the athletes, and because they have to feel the situation and find the proper strategy to score. But by the way, Jessica efficacy is 6%.
Right. That's 6%. That's her success rate of how many times she throws someone. So for every 100 attacks she performs, she throws 6 times. And to put that in perspective, if you think that sounds very bad, okay, she's a world champion and an Olympic medalist, and she's won Grand Slams all over the place. So it goes to show, in her case, I would say, is how often. So while the efficacy is low, she is a super aggressive player. Being an aggressive player limits the amount of times her opponents can attack her because they don't get the opportunity. So when she's this aggressive, they're limited on how often they can get her. And what you were saying, and that was my analysis of watching those Olympics as well, is maybe she took it a step too far of being overly aggressive at inopportune times, which led to multiple penalties and her losing in the Olympic Games, coming bronze, but not becoming the Olympic champion. Maybe she played that card a little too hard in that case, and it's a learning process for her, and she's definitely not retiring. So maybe that's what happened, and that can lead to other things. But a world champion has an efficacy of 6%. So the other takeaway is, if you look at your own, if you analyze yourself, or, if you do some self-analysis, or you use, there's another software, Athlete Analyzer, where you can enter your information and analyze yourself, which is very fascinating, loading your matches into there. And then you can get your own, they can produce the data for themselves that you're producing for the world. And you see, oh, I'm at 5% efficacy. That doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. Jessica's
Absolutely.
a beautiful judo player.
Yeah, because, and we come back again on the idea, the principle behind the match analysis. Okay, we told 6% of efficacy. I opened her page here.
Right.
But we have 81% of victories, right, and 19% of contests lost. And about the victory, we have 44% of victory by ippon.
Right.
In fact, if I go on the technical overview, from 2019 to nowadays, I recorded 537 attacks in Tachiwaza with 13 ippon. No wazari. She marks ippon.
Right.
She scored ippon. No wazari. So 44% won by ippongachi. So that it means, in this, ippongachi means ippon or wazari avazete ippon. In this case, it's only ippon.
Right.
And 26% of sobogachi, it means difference of a wazari, because she scored in a waza. And 28% of hansokugachi. So it means that she attacks so much and the opponent
is penalized
with hansokumake. And if we go on the penalty statistics of Jessica Klimke, we can see that on 537 attack, okay, you eliminate the scores, and you have around 525 attacks. She only get 16 false attack. 16 false attack.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed it was that low. And I don't mean that as a knock. I mean, I think it's partly recency bias. Seeing her lose a match that way at the Olympics affects your
16 false attack. That is the highest number of shido she got. Of course, she got only 3 no combat penalties.
Right. Since 2019, you said?
Yeah, since 2019.
Yeah.
What those data says is that, first, her attack are really
strong, legitimate,
serious attack, not just to do it. Okay?
Right, not first. Attacking for attacking's sake.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, she's a super aggressive fighter.
Yeah.
Only three no combat on a total of 43 penalties.
Right.
This is the idea behind the match analysis, the ability to understand the interaction of the game.
Right. Yeah. It's really like really interesting. And it's, again, this is a case where the eye test didn't lie, right? You watch her, you think she's super aggressive. You think it makes her opponents defensive. You think it makes her opponents get penalized. You look at the information. was it 28 matches opponents lost by Hansoku? Was it 28? I think it was something like that.
Wait, because something happens to the system, of course.
No problem.
Terrible. Let me refresh the page.
No problem. But yeah, I mean, I might be off on the number, but I thought you said it was 28. So it's like 28 times
Yes,
people.
no, 14.
Okay, 14. So
14
still
contests won by
Hansoku. Yeah. So 14 times she beat an athlete because often they didn't have an opportunity to attack on her. The other thing about in terms of automatically correlating success rate of techniques to success as an athlete, as we said, with 6% efficacy and 81% of her matches won. As a reference, those 81% of matches won is not at your local dojo exchange. This is Grand Slams, World Championships, Olympic Games, and some
World
Grand
Masters.
Prix and World Masters, which is for people that haven't seen World Masters. World Masters is invite only for the top players in the world. Such a great idea, such a cool exclusive event, and some Grand Prix. So she's only fighting at the biggest events, and she's winning 81% of her matches. And her success rate, again, highlighting it, but not because it's not negative. She's super aggressive. So she has a 6% success rate of legitimate attacks. And so, yeah, that. I mean, it's pretty wild, and it's so cool to be able to get that information. And as a baseball fan, I know there's always a joke in North America is like, because baseball's done it so long, they'll give a statistic like, oh, this guy bats 325 on rainy days when a dome is open in the month of July on Tuesdays. But because they have all of that information for so long, they can give you these outrageous things. And that can lead to interesting ideas and concepts of things. So there's so much that we can take and get from this, from you doing it, which is, I mean, if it's not obvious, like the idea of it is so exciting to me. I couldn't imagine being able to perform what you do myself and being able to hopefully take advantage of this information myself. The fact that I take advantage of that information by one, getting to talk to you, which is like really exciting, and learn why you did it and how you did it and what got you involved in it is really cool. And then just as like a fan, even if you don't compete, we like to pick favorite players or favorite athletes. We pick my favorite Toronto Blue Jays, Bo Bichette, partly because he hits for a really high average and power. How do I know that? Because they put that data on the screen. So my hope is, where I see that with baseball, is I hope that one day the IJF comes to you and says, you know what we want? We want to show more than just someone's win-loss percentage. When they're competing and they do an Osoto, we want on the screen Jessica Klimkate's success rate of her Suoi Soto Sode Komigoshi has this success rate, and that could be a stat that comes on the screen. I believe that will happen, and I believe because the informed audience, the more informed the audience is, the more engaged they can be too. And so it's exciting to me that I believe we will get there where your data, or you'll be involved in some way that is going to be part of the presentation. And as we know, the presentations have become amazing, and we're hearing incredible commentators. We have beautiful camera feeds with the rotating slow motion and beautiful venues. And so stepping that up even more with utilizing that information from a fan standpoint, it's exciting to me to see that evolution. And to see you produce that information, I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. About what you said about to be official provider of the IJF. Of course, it is one of my dream. Of course,
right.
Because it will be a sort of validation of my
right.
Of course, we have to also to say that all the when I watch the attacks, the techniques, I try to name the techniques as they teach me in the IJF Academy lessons. I had the opportunity to take lessons with Daniel Lascaux, that
Mm-hmm.
is he was world champion,
Yeah.
and but he's an amazing teacher, and of course when you watch on live competition, is very different from when you perform just one technique in the dojo with no stress and this.
Right.
So it's very difficult to understand the principle behind the technique, and I try to name the technique according to the principle behind the technique. So sometimes it looks strange, but because, for example, it was I name one technique like ashiguruma, but one athlete can say, well, I don't know ashiguruma, I know haraigoshi. Yes, but I cannot understand what is in your mind, athlete. I just have to name what I see, and if I recognize that the principle of this technique is ashiguruma, even you want to 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 throw with haraigoshi, I have to say this is ashiguruma.
Right.
But this can also be helpful to athletes to understand maybe that they do different things in different situations and say, why this is ashiguruma and is not haraigoshi. So maybe I have to study to improve this movement.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that's really important about that is the nomenclature for the techniques is very important for us, because we, while most people or many people that perform judo are not Japanese, that's where the name comes from. And if I'm referring to something as one technique and you're referring to something, the same thing as a different name, we're not speaking the same language, and it leads to a lot of confusion. So people understanding the name of those techniques and how they're utilized is very important to getting to that area that we're literally speaking the same language. If I say, for instance, Tani Otoshi, and realistically the person is doing a kosoto gake, right? Or that they go for kosoto and then they finish with an uranage, and you say they're only doing kosoto, we're missing something here, because that person's finishing with an uranage, which is a transition from one technique into the other. So if we don't establish that, there's talking past each other or a misunderstanding of what's happening here, which is really important. And for, again, people that haven't seen as much, if you watch a lot of Georgian or Mongolian judoka, starting from a kosoto gake position, them defending it, and then them turning and going into this huge lifting uranage is a common combination. And if you think, well, they started with this and they ended up throwing, so it's that technique, you're not going to see, if people look at this data, they're not going to see what do you mean he throws with kosoto? Why am I not seeing kosoto? Well, because he's actually throwing them with uranage. And so it's really important that we get to that point of understanding that the naming process of the techniques and where it comes from. And so, yeah, I think the one area that I'm not sure if you had this or if you've thought about this or whatnot is, because there's definitely many people refer to the throw, and I'm guilty of it too. Many people refer to it as drop seoinage. It's not drop seoinage. Right. No, but
not drop.
Right. It's not drop seoinage. Right. Otoshi is drop. So
exactly.
Seo Otoshi. Right. So so using that name is very important. So if you're looking for someone's drop seoinage, you're not going to find it. No. What you need to look for is Seo Otoshi. And so the one thing that I was wondering about, to clarify that, and this would be, I don't know if you've done this or if you've thought about this, or is, do you have a way to connect the legend of the naming process that you have, which is utilizing the accurate wording? I'm not saying you're inventing throws, but utilizing that wording, that if someone was like, oh, I've never seen, let's just say yoko wakare, not used very often. I've never seen yoko wakare. I don't know what that throw is. If you've done that, or if you've thought about that, is to clarify the naming process of some of those techniques is showing. So if someone was like, I want to see this throw, that you would have a clip of what that exactly means, or someone performing it, or something specifically like that. If you've thought about that or done that, or if there's anything like that to clarify for people that don't know when they see those things.
Well, I have one glossary on the website, but I still don't have those kind of connection, because this kind of behavior of the website will come once the highest behavior of the filtering
Right
of specific thing will come. I'm facing one issue of technology. That's why I don't have yet this, but everything is prepared, of course.
Right.
Yeah, everything is prepared to link one specific technique with the Kodokan footage that explain the techniques.
What makes it that technique?
Exactly.
Yeah, I potentially am being greedy by bringing that up, and I'm not saying it in a way to like to undermine or shade in any way what you're doing. I just ask for, like, it's just something that I just sort of thought, hey, that would be interesting if that's potentially possible one day. Going into this admitting I can't do what you're doing. Nobody else in the world is doing what you're doing. You're producing a huge amount of information. It's obviously, for people that don't know, you just did the European Championships. Right? You just analyzed the European Championships, I believe?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how many hours did it take for you to get that data analysis?
Okay, for each competition, I need, of course, the 3 days of competition, and it depends from how many athletes I have, but I need from 4 days to 1 week more.
Right. So
generally, or 1 week more, but from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, just having
tagging break. The information.
No, me from 8 in the morning, from 8 in the evening, just having a short break for having lunch.
Right.
And after 1 week, I'm able to provide all the information, except the Tachiwaza no score with no Kinza. Because averagely we have the 10% of efficacy during a competition. And so averagely in one competition we have around 5,000 of attacks, only Tachiwaza.
Right.
5,000 attacks, only 10% are score, around 10%.
Right.
Another 10% are Kinza. And this is important. This is interesting to say that generally a competition level quality, technical quality, is given not from the points. The points are averagely 9%. When it's less, it means that competition was not technically so
strong,
accurate. But the different mix is given from the Kinza. The highest are the Kinza. The more fashionable has been the contests.
Right.
The Kinza, it means that one throw, bam, but no score. So,
right. Very strong attacks without producing scores.
The audience blow up and everything, but no score. So this is interesting.
Right. So the point I was making is me bringing that up, that connection. Understandably, this is a massive amount of work that you're undertaking regularly. So I guess it's like, if I had a magic wand and maybe potentially one day, or that could, or maybe if we're really lucky, someone else will do it, and then you'll be able to utilize that. Maybe someone will say, hey, I can connect those throws for you from your naming and connect them to the Kodokan video. And maybe if we're both super lucky, and I'll hope for you, that someone does that for you and you can just implement it in your website. That would be fantastic, because then it's not more work for you. But yeah, understanding the naming of throws, because that's what we use, is really important. If you only know it as shoulder throw, it's going to be hard for you to understand the success rate of these techniques. It's seoi nage, it's sore suri komigoshi. Like, knowing those is very important, which I would say is, as a community, it's important that we try to use that naming for our athletes when we teach judo, so that they understand it. Because one beautiful thing about judo is my closest friends are all judoka. And so there is a huge social aspect to judo. As you know, when you train, especially at the level where you're training every day, there's a bond that is rare in life. You don't have it with work normally. You don't have it with school. It's passionate people that are aiming and striving for success in a very difficult thing. Becoming an Olympic athlete is a near impossible goal. And when people are striving for that together, most people can't really understand what that struggle is. So it leads to really strong bonds. And being able to speak the same language as everyone else, by understanding the names of things, by understanding the history of judo, by understanding those practices, helps weave those relationships and allow people to communicate in a way that creates those bonds that they have. And without it, it's like it can be hard. So I think that's an important aspect that, as a sidebar to this, I think.
Yes, of course, and of course we have to think that the only possible language is the Kodokan Judo Institute language.
Right. This is the birthplace of judo. For people that don't know, judo started in 1882 by Jigoro Kano, starting the Kodokan Dojo in the Aishoji Temple in Japan. The Kodokan has kept that lineage. It's this spectacular facility in Tokyo with multiple floors of judo. It's a place that I must see one day. I haven't had the fortune of going yet, but it oversees the naming system of the techniques for everyone to utilize.
Yeah. This is the only possible language. Of course, and I hope not to be punished from the god of judo. Of course, I have a statistical website. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in the judo nomenclature, for example, what we call morote, seoi, nage, or otoshi doesn't exist. It only exists ippon seoi, nage, or otoshi, and seoi, nage, or otoshi. But because we are talking about statistics, it's very important to understand what I call the shape of the techniques. Mm-hmm. Because, for example, we say that all of those techniques are seoi otoshi. So it means that seoi otoshi is the principle of the technique. Okay, is the core. And then we have the shape. With the shape, we can have morote, seoi otoshi, or eri, seoi otoshi, or something that I personally invented. And that's why I hope not to be punished from the god of judo.
Right.
What they call the dropping sodetsuri komigoshi. This technique is not a koshiwaza. This is an otoshi. So I called sodetsuri komi seoi otoshi because the principle is seoi otoshi, and the shape was like a sodetsuri komi.
Right.
So basically I use the Kodokan Judo Institute nomenclature, but in some cases I need to create something just to identify a peculiar and specific movement. What I'm trying to do, of course, is to apply to the new techniques a nomenclature that is very, very close and related to the Kodokan one.
Right. There's one technique as you say that stands out to me. So you may have met him. One of my best friends is Fraser Will. For people that don't know, 60-kilo player from Canada. He took 7th at the Beijing Olympics. Um, great, great judoka and just a great guy. So he utilized a technique that was a Tayatoshi where he dropped, which other people have utilized. He didn't invent it, but other people, but it's not that common. So my question to you is when someone drops while doing a Tayatoshi, do you specify that, or is that just Tayatoshi, or is what do you call that?
I just called Tayatoshi,
Okay.
and I explained to you because the idea behind the principle of the
Mm-hmm.
otoshi
Mm-hmm.
is the falling down. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
otoshi means
To drop.
fall down. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yes, dropping,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. But who drops is not uke, it's tori. So
Mm-hmm.
you can have a small drop like a standing Tayatoshi,
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
say, or you can have big drop going on the knees,
Mm-hmm.
but the principle is always
Right.
otoshi.
Right.
Maybe yes, the shape is
Yeah.
not
It's a
so
right.
similar, but this specific movement is done from specific athletes generally.
Yeah. It's a
Now we
very
are
it's not this is not a common technique. That's part of why I bring it up and why I ask, because yeah, like what would my first thought is, what would I say? Tayatoshi otoshi, like where does it go? It's like uh but it's sort of an interesting thought to think of. And if you like someone with uh a falling, I guess I'll say, rather than use the term drop, falling Tayatoshi where they get very low. I mean, it's a limited number of people that you're going to see perform that technique. So it's hard to find. And I'm sure you don't have that many athletes that are performing it, but yeah, it's kind of an
but you
interesting.
by the way, if one athlete perform this kind of Tayatoshi, you can filter it and you can see if he do
Right.
this
Right.
stay standing or going
Right.
down on the knee.
Yeah, there's another one that's very interesting. I believe he's an Italian player at 81 kilograms. He goes onto one knee and rotates when he does his ochigari.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Parlati,
Pilates,
parlati,
Pilates. Yeah,
parlati.
his ochigari is very it's such a, if people that haven't seen this throw, if you need to look up, it's so cool. He steps and goes onto his left knee, uses the knee like a pivot to do an incredibly quick turn, which generates a lot of power because it's a very efficient turn, because it's spinning a top, almost his knee being the top, and his right leg reaps. So there's this huge pull and turn, and it's so quick. It's such a, I just love it. It's such a unique technique. Not many, I haven't noticed any athletes. I have an athlete that I used to coach that was, I believe he was junior, many time national medalist, and Sava Antic, who started utilizing this throw from Parlati. But it's just such a cool throw. So like, that's, as a judo fan, like check that out. It's pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, yeah. The same. The what what generate the throw is the hook.
Yes.
So even in this case, I don't give a specific name for this technique because yes, you change the height
Yeah.
of the technique, but this
You didn't
technique
change
is,
the throw.
I don't change it. By the
Yeah.
way, just to refresh something, this technique was done for the first time ever by Chamberlain Fraser. He performed this technique
Really?
in some competition, and then other athletes
Saw.
start to copy it
That's
because it's
cool.
very,
It's so unique.
yeah.
When you
It's
see
not
it,
so. It's not
it's
so
unique.
common.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And it's beautifully powerful. It's really efficient.
yes, and now Christian Parlati use it very
effectively.
often.
Yeah.
He's able to score
A lot. Might be his best.
a lot
Yeah.
with this
Might be his
technique.
best throw.
We see. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Right. So yeah, it's just and again, it's like that's one thing that I love is people having access into videos and seeing these things. Like you're seeing an evolution of techniques from other grappling sports that come into play, and you're seeing a certain athlete, as you mentioned, developing this technique. And I didn't know that, so that's kind of interesting to see. My reference point was Parlati, and man, is he good at it, and man, is it a cool throw to watch.
Ouchigari is his performing technique.
Yeah.
And if you go on his Ouchigari, okay, he performed 44 times Ouchigari.
Yeah.
And he has 30% of efficacy of the technique.
Incredible. Shows you again. We were talking. I didn't know that. Ever since going back to something, ever since I wrote this blog about the efficacy of techniques and which ones and why, ever since then, Ochi stood out so much to me. Ochi is it's like the throw that I have a crush on because I never thought anything about it before to a degree. I never loved it that much. And then you see its success rate and you're like, and then you see 30% on this very cool drop of Ouchigari. It's it's very interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I've taken up a huge amount of your time, but it was awesome to get to chat with you again. And I very much hope that we cross paths in person in the near future. And worst case scenario, I'd love to do another chat with you, just whether that's on a podcast or in person. It's just always, it's so awesome to talk to you and be passionate about judo. And I always learn something from our conversation. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much to you, my friend, even if we meet only virtually in these channels, but when people are true people, establish a good and a strong friendship is very nice and very easy. I'm honored to be host on the blog, and I really hope to have this conversation again, and maybe personally drinking a beer.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
yeah,
great.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you. See you later.